This is one of those moments where the league pretends it's just another week of games, but everyone watching knows that reputations, legacies, and entire organizational directions are quietly being put on trial at the same time. Because when people start openly questioning whether the Bears can actually claim the NFC North, whether the Dolphins are desperate enough to even flirt with the idea of trading for Shedeur Sanders, and whether the Panthers sitting atop the NFC South is real or just a mirage, you're no longer talking about football results. You're talking about belief systems collapsing in real time. You're talking about narratives that were supposed to be locked in suddenly cracking under pressure. And you're talking about a league that hates uncertainty but thrives on chaos. This is the part of the season where excuses run out, where weather stops being just weather and becomes a litmus test for quarterbacks, where rain and wind are no longer background details but weapons that expose flaws, and where every comment made on television suddenly carries weight because it feels like everyone is choosing sides. You can hear it in the way Sam Darnold is discussed, not as a guy trying to survive a game but as a quarterback fighting a narrative that refuses to die. You can hear it in the way the Rams are talked about like a machine that should not be slowed down even when injuries, controversy, and personal chaos swirl around them. And you can absolutely feel it in the way teams like Chicago, Miami, and Carolina are being mentioned in the same breath as division crowns and seismic moves, because that alone tells you how upside down the league feels right now. This isn't comfortable football. This is uncomfortable football. This is the kind of football that forces analysts to stop hedging and start saying what they really think, because the margins are thin, the spotlight is bright, and nobody wants to be the one who missed the moment when everything changed. And that's why this conversation exploded the way it did. Because beneath the surface of injury reports, weather updates, and schematic breakdowns, there's a deeper argument happening about who belongs, who doesn't, and who is about to be exposed when the lights get hot. That's what makes this week feel dangerous, that's what makes it compelling, and that's why people can't stop watching. What actually happened here is a convergence of storylines that all hit at once. From the Rams walking into a rain-soaked, wind-battered environment at Lumen Field with the weight of the NFC West and the #1 seed hanging over them, to Sam Darnold once again being dissected like a long unsolved case file, to injury news quietly reshaping matchups that will decide divisions. The Rams are trying to balance urgency with preservation, especially with Davante Adams' health looming over everything, while also dealing with conditions that could flip their game plan on its head. The Seahawks are staring at a moment where weather, wind, and pressure could either become an equalizer or a magnifying glass. And layered into that is the reality that this isn't just about one game, it's about how quarterbacks are judged, how coaches are evaluated, and how front offices start thinking about the future. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying this kind of no-filter breakdown, make sure you subscribe to the channel and leave a like, because this is where we call it the way it actually looks, not the way people want it to sound. From there, the discussion doesn't pull any punches, especially when it comes to Sam Darnold, because what's being said isn't just critique, it's an autopsy of habits, tendencies, and decision-making. When Dan Orlovsky talks about Darnold not listening to his feet, that's not coach speak, that's a fundamental indictment of quarterbacking instincts. Feet and eyes are supposed to be married, and when they aren't, the result is hesitation, late throws, and defenders reading intentions before the ball even leaves the hand. That's why the Rams' defensive approach matters so much here, because they aren't just taking away throws, they're baiting him, inviting him to hang on to reads that look open for a split second and then vanish. The middle of the field disappears, safeties drop with vision on the quarterback, linebackers funnel routes exactly where help is waiting, and suddenly the windows Darnold wants don't exist anymore. This is where narratives are born, because when you see the same mistakes repeat against the same opponent, people stop calling it coincidence and start calling it a pattern, and patterns stick. That's why the comparison to Kirk Cousins matters, because it highlights how fragile these labels are until they aren't. Cousins didn't erase his narrative with stats, he erased it by surviving a moment. Darnold doesn't need perfection here. But he does need competence under pressure, because every misstep reinforces the idea that when the game gets big, he shrinks. And that's the tension sitting underneath this matchup, especially with weather conditions that force quarterbacks to rely even more on fundamentals. Meanwhile, the Rams aren't just dealing with football. Puka Nacua's week is a reminder that distractions don't politely wait for the offseason. An apology issued hours before a game with massive playoff implications isn't just awkward timing, it's an emotional tax. It's another thing a locker room has to carry into a stadium already filled with pressure. And yet, the way this is framed tells you something about how the Rams are viewed. They're treated like a team that should be able to absorb chaos without flinching. That's the expectation. Sean McVay's week alone feels like a stress test of leadership, from becoming a father again, to travel disruptions, to illness, to managing injuries, to handling off-field controversy, all while chasing his 100th career win before turning 40. That's not just trivia, that's a reminder of how fast this organization expects success and how little patience it has for excuses. The way the Rams' offense is broken down reinforces that image of inevitability. The illusion, the motions, the same plays dressed up differently, the constant forcing of defenders to hesitate for half a second too long. That's not accidental. That's a philosophy designed to make defenses wrong even when they think they're right. And when you hear defenders talk about chasing ghosts, that's the cost of facing an offense that never stops setting traps. On the other side of the league, the quarterback carousel quietly spins. Lamar Jackson's practice habits are framed not as concern but as routine, because patterns normalize uncertainty. The Eagles losing key pieces reminds everyone how thin margins are. Miami benching Tua and giving Quinn Ewers a look isn't just about one game. It's about evaluation, about future planning, about whether belief has quietly eroded. The Bears' injury report changes how their offense is viewed, funneling expectations toward DJ Moore and shifting pressure onto play calling. And looming over all of it is the coaching market, where every standalone game becomes an audition. Jeff Hafley isn't just coaching a defense without Micah Parsons, he's performing under a spotlight filled with owners, executives, and fan bases looking for answers. The discussion about pressure, disguise, and manufacturing disruption without elite personnel cuts deeper than scheme. It's about proving that coaching can elevate, not just manage talent. That's why these games feel heavier than usual, because the consequences stretch beyond the scoreboard. Even the conversations about veterans like Philip Rivers coming back at 44 aren't just nostalgia. They're about endurance, about what experience looks like when the body is screaming, and about how preparation changes when recovery becomes the real opponent. Troy Aikman's perspective adds weight because it strips away romance and replaces it with reality. Recovery takes time. Pain accumulates, and doing it again a week later is a different challenge entirely. Yet that's the league we're watching now, where old quarterbacks face young ones, where moxie is praised but recklessness is punished, and where Brock Purdy's growth is framed through his ability to create without a dominant run game. The 49ers' struggles and adjustments expose how even elite systems strain when injuries pile up, forcing quarterbacks to become problem solvers rather than operators. The Steelers' conversation circles back to pride and perception, especially with Aaron Rodgers bristling at the idea of being labeled a cast-off. That reaction alone tells you how thin-skinned greatness can become when questioned. The chip on the shoulder isn't a cliche here, it's fuel, and the idea of experienced quarterbacks facing younger ones in the postseason carries an unspoken warning about patience, poise, and the psychological side of playoff football. As the focus shifts to defenses, run games, and schematic details, the underlying theme remains control. Who controls the line of scrimmage? Who controls leverage? Who controls the narrative? Jacksonville's defense is praised but immediately challenged. Denver's confidence at home becomes a measuring stick. The Rams' run game breakdown isn't just X's and O's, it's a lesson in discipline, because one missed edge, one defender losing contain, turns sound defense into a highlight for the offense. And that's the quiet cruelty of this league. Everyone knows what's coming. Stopping it anyway is the test. As playoff implications loom, probabilities are thrown around, but they only amplify the stakes. 90% chances mean nothing if execution slips. Seattle's opportunity exists only if someone else falters. San Francisco waits in the wings, ready to pounce on any opening. Davante Adams' injury hangs like a question mark over everything. A reminder that health can override preparation in an instant. And through it all, Sean McVay's offense is treated as the constant. The thing that must be solved. The thing that never stops evolving. That's why this week feels so volatile, because it's not just about wins and losses. It's about who can handle complexity, pressure, and scrutiny at the same time. When the dust settles, some narratives will die, others will harden, and a few will be born louder than ever. And that's the uncomfortable truth of where the league is right now.